Welcome, everyone, to this Professional Development Hour presentation brought to you proudly by the Atlanta Metro chapter of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, an affiliate of the National Society of Professional Engineers. Before we begin, we'd like to let you know that any opinions presented tonight are solely the opinions of the presenter and not that of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, the National Society of Professional Engineers, or any other of its affiliates. We certainly hope you will enjoy tonight's presentation, so sit back and relax. And on with the show.
Okay.
Yes, they will also provide food and drinks because the professor is doing the presentation.
All right, folks. Tonight's presentation is 21st Century Pharmaceutical Engineering. Our presenter is Mr. Michael Williams. He is a graduate. He's a native of Alabama, South Alabama.
Yep.
Whereabouts, South Alabama?
North of Mobile.
Mobile. All right. Yeah. He is a graduate of Alabama A&M, bachelor's in chemistry. He's also a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt. So please join me in giving Michael a hand.
Good afternoon, and I'm glad to be here. Hopefully we'll say something tonight that'll have you understand a little bit more about how the pharmaceutical industry works and how we manufacture drugs. All of us, probably, maybe the young guys maybe not, but all of us in here probably take some type of drug. Tablet. Hey, if you get old as we are, you know, things start breaking, so you have to start taking something. And it's heavily regulated industry. It's got a lot of, as you'll see my quote, and I always say this, precision is a requirement. It's not just a goal, it's a requirement. We have to be accurate at what we do because the public is dependent on us to make sure that they have safe and effective drugs. Okay? So I'm gonna talk a little bit about Mikart. Let me get this thing. The company I work for. This is the agenda for tonight, and I'm gonna try to cover these things. We got about 50 minutes, and I don't think it'll take us that long unless you got a lot of questions, but I wanna go through it enough so that you can get a grasp of what we do and what I do every day and what Mikart does every day. How many of you heard of Mikart? Anybody? Okay. That's what I thought, but I'm gonna go through the history of who Mikart is. I'm gonna go through our campus overview, and we're CDMO, that's a contract development manufacturing organization, okay, and the kind of services we provide. And then we're gonna go into the basic principle of drug making. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what goes into that, the raw materials, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about manufacturing and packaging. And then a little bit at the end about some engineering practices, facility design, HVAC systems, automation, and then regulatory requirements, and some examples, because we hear a lot of things in the news now, and I want to give you a little insight of why that's happening, if I can. All right. Talk about our founders. We had two people that immigrated from Cuba. Dr. Bertha, lady on the right, Iturus, and then Dr. Ruben Artechi. They were Cuban immigrants. They fled Cuba when Castro took over. They meant to come here and stay just a few weeks and go back. That didn't happen. Okay, so they stayed here in the U.S. They had a pharmaceutical company in Cuba. They came in the U.S. and they started a pharmaceutical company, 1975. So that's how long Mikart has been in the Atlanta area, and most people haven't heard of them, okay? The name Mikart comes from their son, which name was Miguel Artechi. And they called him Mike as a nickname, just like they do me. And that's how you get the name Mike Artechi, Mikart. And that's where the name come from, okay? And it was privately owned up until end of 2017. And it was purchased by some investment bankers, and we're owned by that company now, the company called Nordic. Okay. these are some of the things you can do, and why we tell people you can choose Mikart is one thing. We're mid-size CDMO, okay? And some of the things we do pre-formulation. We can do formulation development. We do lab scale feasibility studies. We handle non-GMP we have a non-GMP and R&D lab. We have analytical methods development and transfer and validation work we do. We do CGMP clinical and registration batches. We do process validation, commercial manufacturing, finished product release and testing, in-house stability program, and microbiology. We have a full microbiology lab. We do all our own in-house microbiology testing. Okay, and stability. We have stability. We do our own in-house stability testing. Okay, we also do packaging and labeling. We package everything we make, but we also have contract packaging services. So we can package bulk product and bring it in, and we can do commercial packaging. All right, and then we have regulatory support. So I'll go through these things. We support our clients. We have a regulatory department that performs all our filings, and we also assist clients with their filings. Okay. This is the campus overview. We actually have 7 buildings, but we got them divided up into 4 categories: M1, M4, M8, and then M2 way over in the corner there. So
Where is that located?
that's on the corner of Chattahoochee Avenue and Marietta Boulevard. Okay, it's right at the corner of the popular area that's growing with a lot of multifamily development in that area. Okay, so we're getting squeezed from all corners with with houses right now. But our M1 building is our manufacturing, our raw material storage, regulatory, quality, and administration building. Okay. M2 building, which is our packaging, liquid suspension, accounting, procurement, and corporate offices. We have another building that's M4, we call it M4, which is our science center, which does formulations, analytical development, QC, testing, and stability. All right? And then we have an M8 building where all our container closures, our bottles, caps, labels, things like that are stored there. Then we have a human resources department that's housed in that building. So we split up the campuses. We have about 12 acres right there at the corner of Chattahoochee and Marietta. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about CDMO services. So we're experts in oral, solid, and liquid dosage forms from development through commercialization. So that we can develop the product for us. You can come to us and tell us we need it fully developed from start to finish.
CDMO stands for?
Contract Development Manufacturing Organization. Some people are just CMOs, Contract Manufacturing Organization, but we contract, develop, and manufacture. Okay? That's the difference. Okay? These are the things we do. On the oral solid dose side, we can do immediate release and modified release, okay, tablets. We can do regular tablets, we can do mini tabs. Anybody know what a mini tab is? If you ever seen a capsule with a lot of little tablets inside of the capsule, and they're that way for a reason, especially for smaller kids and elderly people that have trouble swallowing. So you can put multi-doses in those mini tabs and do those deliveries into the system, okay? We can also do bi-layer tablets. There's tablets that have 2 layers on them. Those got one active ingredient on top, another active ingredient on the bottom. Come out the same press at the same time, all right? ODT, or chewable sublingual tablets. So, or disintegrating tablet, rapidly dissolve in your mouth. As soon as you put them on your tongue, they stay in there a little while and they dissolve. Allegra, I give you a tablet, something like Allegra. That's all disintegrating tablet because it dissolves really quickly. Chewables, that's obvious what those are, chewable tablets, and then sublingual, the ones you put on your tongue, like something like a nitroglycerin or something like that that goes under your tongue. All right? Capsules. We know what capsules are, the little capsules you swallow. Powders, blends, sprinkles, and multi-particles. So powders are obvious things that comes out in a pouch or a sachet or stick pack, as a lot of people call them, and go to the pharmacy and then, or either go to your home and you get reconstituted in with a liquid. So you pour the powder in something, stir it up, and then drink it.
Goody powders?
Yep, like a goodie powder. All right? Blends, sprinkles. Anybody know what sprinkles are? They look just like sprinkles, like candy, like you get on a cupcake, those little sprinkles. The tablets look very similar to those. They just, and those multi-sprinkles could have different doses, different compounds in them. They go into a capsule, and you take those and they do different things, okay? And then you got multi-particles, nanoparticles, things that's down to microns size, that we can also have that capability as well. All right. Then we go to solutions and suspensions. So there's a difference between a solution. Some people think cough syrups, a lot of cough syrups are solution, but there are a lot of cough syrups that's things that are suspensions. Pepto-Bismol, Melantha, why you have to shake it up? That's a suspension. It's blended, fully blended. It's homogeneous, but you have to mix it up to get it back in solution before you take it. That's a suspension, but we do both. Aqueous and non-aqueous, water and solvent based. Then we do a lot of pediatric and geriatric population unit dose cups, vials, and bottles. So we do dose cups like they have in the hospital that you can do. People take it, real easy to use because it's one dose in the cup, you peel it off and you drink it down, you have to worry about measuring something out, okay? And then we do powder in a bottle or a sachet. As I spoke of earlier, it's perfect for swallowing issues. Again, you pour it in, mix it up, and you drink it. And then that's used, primary pediatric and generics use that a lot, all right? A little bit about our formulation processes. Again, we can go from clinical to commercial. I go through these briefly, blending and direct blending compression. I'll go into that later. Some products or compounds can go together as a dry blend. You can just mix them up like cake batter, stir them up dry. They go together. Molecules fit together. You take them to a tablet press and press them. That's fine. And they go straight to the tablet press and be pressed out into tablets. But then you have those others in category 2 where we have wet and dry granulation. We have to do a little bit more. We have to wet them to get them to go together, molecules to go together. Form agglomerates, larger particles. In the wet solution, then you have to dry them and grind them up and then get them into a tablet. Then there's others that's got dry granulation the same way. You got big particles, small particles. They don't go together. You have to put them together, do a lot of, I would say, turbulence or blending. Then they get granulated, milled, some form of fashion, and then it's how the particles come together, and then get compressed into a tablet. We have fluid bed granulation and wet Wurster coating. A fluid bed is a big oven. Describe it in layman terms. You put a solution, powder in that, a wet granule in that solution. You atomize it or lift it up with air, blow air through it, and you dry the product, okay? You can also do that with beads, what we call beads. I don't know if most of us in here probably can remember the old Tylenol tablet. We got all those little round beads in there. We can call them sugar spheres, and you can spray those, but you can actually do those in a fluid bed. They get aerated, they get coated, sprayed and coated in that, drop out, then go to another process, okay? We can do all of that. 4, tableting, mono and bilayer, so a single layer tablet and a bilayer tablet. We can do fluid bed and pan coating. We can coat in the fluid bed like I just described, and we can coat in a pan coater. But tablets just get rotated in a pan over and over again, and you spray it as it's rotating, all right? We have low humidity processing. Some products cannot take heat. They have to be low moisture in the air. in order for those to compound to stay together. So we do low humidity processing. We also can do encapsulation. Like I talked about putting medicine in a capsule. So we call it an encapsulator. And last but not least, solutions and suspensions, aqueous and non-aqueous, solvent and water-based solutions. Okay. We have analytical support. I won't go through everything we can do there, but we have analytical development services that can do all of those things. We have analytical equipment, HPLC, that's high pressure liquid chromatography. We got gas chromatography, we got UPLC, UV vis, ultraviolet light testing. All of those are testing parameters that you will find in the pharmaceutical industry. API and finished product test, that means raw materials, the active ingredient. We test all of those. Everything that comes in has to be tested. So we don't, it's few things that we take just a C of A for, a certificate of analysis. We test everything. In most cases in the pharmaceutical industry, you have to identify it and verify that this is the product or compound that it says it is. Even though you've developed a relationship with the suppliers, you developed a contract with them, you got quality agreements in place, we still test everything. We sample and test everything, okay? But our lab, our analytical development services group is able to do all that capability. We got atomic absorption, water activity, all those things we can do. QC, quality control department, again, they can do raw material testing, water testing, USP water. We make our own water. Our lab tests it, and we release it just like a raw material every week. We test it every week and gets released. If it doesn't pass the in-process test, it does not get released. We have to do some other work. We have to do an investigation. We have to determine why we had ions that was out of place. Total organic compound is out of place. We have to understand that before we release it and start making products. So it gets tested every week, just like any other raw material coming from anywhere else. All right? And then we have a full microbiology lab where we do cultures. We do air samples. We do swabbing our tanks and vessels and tools. We swab the floor. We swab the ceilings. We swab the walls every week, every day. We got a different area that's being swabbed. All our production rooms, floors, walls, ceilings, air monitoring. They take samples from the air every week. That's in the pharmaceutical industry. Okay?
What are they looking for in the air samples?
Microbes, microbials. If it's in the air, it's going to get in the product. It's eventually going to show up in the stability testing.
What kind of sampling do you do on the end product? You know, the final pills or something like that?
We do assay. We do purity. Assay is called purity, this potency of the compound. We do moisture content. That's just to name a few, but assay is critical. Moisture content is critical because that kind of determines your stability. So, for instance, we sample something. Most tablets have 2-year, 3-year shelf life. Same thing with liquid drugs, 2-year, 3 years. So we measure that on a basis. Usually 3, 6, 12, every 3 months.
What percent volume do you sample?
We have, it's a matrix. It depends on the, each batch has a different size, and you determine it from that batch size how many samples you have to take. Yep. It's a AQL, acceptable quality level. We use that matrix and that measurement mill standard and determine how many samples we take. All right.
For your longevity test, do you have an accelerated test protocol?
Yes, we have, in our stability changer, we have accelerated testing, and then we have our standard test, what we call relative humidity, and then accelerated humidity. Higher temperature shows up degradation quicker, and we monitor both of those. Yep. Okay.
How often do you have air changes? Yeah. How often do you have air changes?
So typically for a pharmaceutical plant, and they can go from, it depends on the classification that you have. Whether you meet an ISO standard 7, 8, 9, it depends on that, but typically 15 to 16 air changes. New modern day facilities, normally about 25 air changes a minute. Yeah, it goes, you have to have purified air. We use HEPA filters. We use one pass air, so the air comes in and never returns. And then if it returns, it's going with a 99%, in most cases, 99% HEPA filter, taking everything out of the air. All the rooms are negative to the hallways. We'll get through that when we get to the design. So everything that's in the hallway, the rooms are negative, so everything is sucking this way. All right? All the rooms are negative to the hallway. So that means you have to have clean corridors, or we call it clean hallways. So we constantly mopping the floors, sanitizing the floors, running buffers during the day to make sure the hallways are clean. Because everything that's in the hallway is pulling into the room. Nothing blows out of the room for a number of reasons, because if you're making what we call a potent compound or a high toxicity compound, you can't have it blow into the hallways. Somebody walking by can get affected by that drug, okay? We make a lot of controlled substances. We make potent compounds. I've worked in areas and companies where we made what everybody's hearing about now, fentanyl. I've made a lot of Oxycontin. I've made a lot of Percocet, Indocet, every narcotic product you can think of, oxymorphone, or morphine, Opana, just about every narcotic you can think of, I've made it. And they're highly effective if you get close to it and not protected. So that's why the rooms are negative. Everything stays in the room.
So your company does the chemical interaction in addition to just the sizing and packaging?
When you mean chemical interaction?
You start with raw materials and
Yes.
make drugs.
Yes, we make drugs. We start with raw materials and put those raw materials together and make drugs.
The national perception is that so we hear in the news from COVID days that all the pharmaceuticals are made in China and all over the world, but not much is made in the United States. You find that your share is growing now that people are de-investing in China, or how much of that market is there to be had?
You saying in the U.S. or in China?
In the U.S.
In the U.S.? Well, when they say that, when they mean about overseas, the raw materials, a lot of the raw materials are made overseas. Okay, that's what that means. So and that's a true fact. We get a lot of our raw materials from overseas. Most pharmaceutical companies do, either India, China, Ireland. A lot of Ireland companies now. But we do get a lot of raw materials from overseas. Yep.
What would be some of those raw materials? Repeat my question.
Sure. He's asking what would be some of the raw materials? I'll show you some of the formulations when I get here, but some of the raw materials is microcrystalline cellulose. That is just wood pulp, just ground up wood, tree pulp. And it serves as a bulk in a drug substance. You got lactose. Goes in just about every oral solid dose. Those are some of the things that that we get buying from overseas. Yeah. Okay.
Is fentanyl considered a narcotic? What the heck is it used for?
Fentanyl, yes, it is a narcotic. Absolutely. It is used for pain relief. Critical, I would say for most people it's to make you comfortable. It's for acute pain, fentanyl. Same as Oxycontin. Oxycontin was developed really for acute pain, but along the way it did get abused.
Well, we hear that just getting close to it is deadly. I mean,
Absolutely. So there's classifications of compounds. When you talk about potent compounds, and fentanyl is one of them. So they go by micron levels. So you got OEB band 1 through 5. Okay, 5 being the worst, 1 being the least. And so when you get to band 5, like a fentanyl or something like that, you're talking low microns, less than 10 or less than 1 micron is effective to you. All right, so you're getting 1 micron is not much at all. That's just a dust. And so that's why fentanyl is so deadly, because it's a very low dose that you need to be effective. And so buying it off the street, buying it from somebody you don't know what they're not a chemist, they're not a doctor, they're not a pharmacist, they're not a manufacturer. They don't have a clue how much dosage they got. And it scares me that people and kids and everybody that will go and buy a drug like that off the street. All right? Because you have no clue how they made it.
To be clear though, getting close to it, like you said, that's only if it's airborne, right?
It's if it's airborne.
Can it be absorbed through the skin? Like if somebody touches it?
No. It's not absorbed that way. But if you get it, inhale it, there's a lot of ways oral dose, yes. I walked in the room. We made fentanyl. We made the lollipops, especially for people with cancer patients, the lollipops. And even after we decommissioned that room and moved it to another facility, another state actually, and even after the fact, even after we had closed systems, what we call closed loop systems, and I went in the room, I had to get a doctor's clearance to go in the room and work, and also we all had to have EpiPens, even to go in the room and work. And we had full body suits from head to toe. And I went in and and it was not in the room, it was just in the ceiling, in the walls, and from years of working in there, I could still feel the effects of it. Now, even though it was tested and measured, it was below what SafeBridge calls a safe level. It was below the exposure level, but that doesn't mean you're not sensitive to it. All of us are sensitive to different drugs in a different way, and I was sensitive to it even at that level that had been cleaned out of the room. So that's how strong it is. Okay. Packaging service. We offer packaging service. We go from bottles from 15 cc's to 1250 cc's, or 15 milliliters to 1250 milliliters. HPDE, high density polyethylene, PET, and glass. We do unit dose, blisters, laminated foil pouches, cups, and sachets. What a blister pack is, the ones you peel off. We also do our packaging is compliant. It's DSCSA compliant. That means bottles, cartons, tray pack, bottles, shippers, and pallets. What that means is if you get a prescription drug, right, in a bottle, I can tell you what line that was made on, when it was made, what carton it went in, what pallet it was on when it left the plant, and where it went to after it left. It's the full aggregation. Our company is fully, what we call full aggregation. We have full traceability down to that bottle level, no matter how many bottles. And a lot could be 60,000 bottles. We know exactly where every one of those bottles and where they're distributed at. Okay? Regulatory history. We, as you know, by being a pharmaceutical company, you get inspections from the FDA. Food and Drug Administration, you also get inspected by the DEA and Georgia State Drug Association. We get inspected. You can see our record, agency, date, and purpose, what the audits were, the different types of audits they have, but we've been inspected. Our last inspection from the FDA was in April 2022, and you can see our results over here. Outcome was no deficiencies. That means a 483. 483 is just a form, 483. That's what the FDA calls form 483. And they'll come in and do an inspection. If they find some deficiencies, they write it on form 483. You can find those things. I'll show you at the end of the slide some of those things that they write in, and we'll ding you on. But what they're looking for is you following the Code of Federal Regulations, following GMP practices, good documentation practices. Basically, they're saying, do what you say you're doing, all right? And you should have traceability. You should have control over all of your processes, okay? And so we've had an excellent reputation with the FDA. As you guys may or may not know, the FDA Atlanta district is here. One of the biggest districts in the U.S. is in this city. And so we are just up the street from them. And so they don't give you a notification. A lot of times they do, but they don't have to give you a notification when they're coming. A lot of times they do a courtesy and tell you, hey, we're coming at a certain time, but a lot of times they can just show up. Okay? So especially a surveillance audit, they don't have to get a notification. PAI, which is a pre-approval inspection. So if you develop a new drug and you made a new application and you want them to come look at your facility and see how it's made and look at your procedures and SOPs, that's called a pre-approval inspection before you can start manufacturing. So you have to get approval. That usually takes about 2 years from the time you apply till they come in and do an inspection. So about a 2-year process. So you can have a blockbuster drug, but you gotta wait until they come.
So you were talking, the combination is what made me think of it, the regulatory and the packaging. I've heard in veterinary use, there are companies that are doing, for lack of a better term, I guess, 3D printing medications so you get the dose exactly right for the weight of the animal. And I understand the FDA doesn't allow that for humans yet. Do you foresee that coming? And is that something you guys are positioned to take advantage of? We're not in position to do that, take advantage of that right now. In my personal opinion, I can't say I won't see that coming because the industry is changing. Drugs are changing. You got new application, new therapeutic uses, and so I wouldn't rule it out, but it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. Okay. We also do project management, so we can serve as a client primary point of contact. We can develop and manage your project timelines. We can employ industry standard tools and software. We can coordinate project update meetings with the client, typically bi-weekly. We PDS and PM involvement through validation and crossover with manufacturing clients when approved. So once the drug gets approved, we still work for the clients that's doing clinical trials. We can still work with them to get it to commercial, up to a commercial level. Okay? We can track and communicate project scope, milestone, deliverables, documents, and budgets. And we can lead internal project team meetings, typically weekly. So we have the staff to do that. So we're a full service organization. All right? We have in-house regulatory, so we don't contract this out. We have a regulatory department that handles all of these things: product applications, life cycle, ECTD. That's the electronic, as I say, standard format for submission. So you don't have to go to the FDA and mail it to them anymore. Everything is done electronically. It has a standard format that all applications come in. We do that electronically. We have the capability. CMC packaging support, contract manufacturing, packaging support. As I talked earlier, we can do that, contract just packaging. We can do quality overall summary. We will summarize quality related DS and DP information. That's all regulatory filings, filing assistance and support. And then we can do standard format labeling product facility info to the FDA's, SPL. So standard format labeling. Labeling, as you get a drug, if you buy something over the counter and you see that label on there, that label is not haphazard. That label has to get approved before it gets on the bottle. FDA approves those labels. You change that number, that NDC number, drug number on there, it has to get approved before it gets on the thing. If you change the cap, that has to get approved. You can't change, if you change the foil, that under the lid, it has to get approved. It doesn't just get changed. I remember we changed the label when I was at Pfizer. We changed the cap because the elderly people couldn't read it, the labeling. So we changed the cap to pictorial, arrows, things like that. Didn't file it exactly right. And they came back on us, they came back on us to had to go back and redo that. And so even to that detail, what's on the label, turn this direction, push down and turn, that means a lot. And how much that torque is on there is determined by our filing, how much torque. So it has to be where a person can torque down and push and turn it, even the elderly person, right? But it's got to be strong enough where a kid can't do it, right? All right, so you got to make it proof from a kid, easy enough for an elderly person to turn it. And the problem is when most of us get older and having arthritis and things like that, it's more difficult to do it.
All right, so you have to balance that that criteria. Equipment list, we got a range of equipment, and you can pull it up from our database. You can go to our website, and you can see what capabilities and what type of equipment we have in the plant. Okay. So let's get into a little bit of manufacturing. Talk a little bit how drugs are actually made. I'm gonna talk a little bit about liquids and suspensions briefly, but I'm gonna spend most of the time, because it's too much information, I'm gonna spend most of it on oral solid dose, what most of us are familiar with and take every day. So we do, the formulations for a liquid and suspension is very similar. So I got it listed there. So the liquid that's in black there, and then I got the suspension in blue. So the formulation for all liquids, most liquids have an API, active ingredient. It's the compound that actually works for you. It does the work. But then it also has some preservatives in it. A preservative, usually some kind of paraben, methylparaben is used a lot as preservative to extend the shelf life. You got an antifreeze agent, propylene glycol or glycerin. So when it was shipped to Alaska, it won't freeze, right? And when you ship it to Miami, it won't get too hot and cause the compound to degrade. Okay, so it's like antifreeze. All right. Then you got a lot of people that colorants or dyes in there just to distinguish themselves from everybody else. Or, to be honest with you, people take things because it looks good. Okay, so we put dyes in there just for color. It has no therapeutic effect at all. Antioxidants, a stabilizer, use an EDTA, that's ethylene, diamine. It's an amine that goes in there as a stabilizer. So it keeps the product stable during stability, extends the shelf life. Most of them have a flavor. Just about all liquids or suspension has a flavor. Berry or cherry are two popular ones. Bubble gum for kids. I mean, it's just what we like to take. And you see most things are that way, all right? And then it's usually a solvent. It's either water or alcohol. It's what the bulk of the volume comes from, water, alcohol, all right? And then in a suspension, again, that's for a suspension. You have either a solvent alcohol base, and then you have a thickening agent, something like xanthan gum. Okay, so suspension keeps it suspended. That thickening agent keeps it suspended. Okay, but the formulations for the both are very similar. Okay. I just threw this in here to show you what a typical batch record for a liquid is. Not really complicated in most cases. Suspension usually gets some heating and cooling, and we hook up to a heat exchanger, and usually get the methylparabens in. And the suspension, you have to heat it up a little bit, and then cool it down to get them melted in and dissolved. Okay, you don't have to do that with a liquid. Liquid, usually most of the things go in and dissolve readily with water. Okay. But just a batch record. This is what we call a batch record, and this is what you'll see. It'll have a lot more detail than that, but that's a simple recipe for a liquid or suspension. Okay? And it tells them exactly what to do when they add them in, and the order of addition means a lot now. Don't get me wrong. They have to go in a certain order. You cannot change that order. We file that order of addition with the FDA. If it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, you can't go 2, 3, 1, and 5. It goes in order. Okay? You cannot deviate at all from the recipe. Okay? As for a suspension liquid or a oral solid dose, the recipe is set. And so I brought this up to show you what this is when we get into pharmaceutical engineering. I call it a transformation. So the picture on the left-hand side, that's the old way. All right, that's still a liquid manufacturing suite. We call it. You got an open top tank, you got a motor on top, you got a control, analog control system on the side of the wall there with buttons, and you got steam and water coming through it from the sides for heating and cooling, running around the walls.
But this is the new way. This is what we call pharmaceutical transfer. This is 21st century manufacturing. So I got a PLC here that's controlling with a balance. And then I got another PLC there. And I can hook up any of those tanks to that PLC and heat and cool. I can do it in this room and 3 other rooms from this one PLC. Whereas before I could only do it in one room. Also on this tank, you can't see the tank because I couldn't get the whole picture in, but it's on what we call load cells. So we don't weigh to dump it in anymore. We don't have to measure it out anymore like before and then dump the powder in or the liquid in. Now we can load it as we go, dump it into the tank because it's on load cells. You zero it, you dump in 50 kgs, it weighs 50 kgs. Dump in the next 50 kgs, it shows 100 kgs. And that's how you go to the end. Whereas before we pre-weighed and then dumped it in the tank. Okay, so this is 21st century, that's the 20th century operation. Don't mean that that's not wrong, but this is the way you do it now. Okay, a lot more controls, a lot more automation, a lot more trying to take the worker out of the process. Okay, a lot less mistakes doing it this way. All right.
So if you have a power outage, do you guys have backup generators to make sure that equipment keeps running?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. We have backup generators in 2 or 3 of our buildings. Not all of them have it, but anywhere that we're making something that needs to be controlled, especially in this building, which is our M2 building, and our science center, where you got stability chambers that have to be controlled, we have backup generators. And some of our manufacturing areas, we don't, because we can stop. If the power goes out, we can stop the process and pick it back up. But other areas where it's got a continuous to be ran, produced, we have backup generators.
So you have batch runs, and you have batches, and you also have batch runs?
We have, all of our processes are batch processes.
And how large a batch would you have?
On the liquid side, 4,000 liters. And then on the oral solid dose, largest batch I have is 6 million tablets. And that's a small batch. I've made 20 million tablet batches. I've had a lot of 20 million tablet batches over the years. The risk you run in a large batch, the larger you get, if there's a problem, that's a lot you had to throw away, right? So it's a risk-based approach. You really need to know your system really well and have control of your system when you get up to 20 million tablets in one batch, because could be a week or 2 weeks of a tablet, and you find out, hey, we left out an ingredient, and that's a reject. There's nothing you can do with that.
You throw away. I'm going to guess it's a highly controlled throwaway.
Yes. So anything that's a controlled substance, we have chain of custody. We have everybody that touched that product signs off on it. If it goes to be destroyed, it's signed off on. All right, the destruction company, we do a chain of custody. They're responsible for it. If I move a tablet press from Atlanta to North Carolina, if I move the press, no product, I have to notify the FDA where that's going. Okay?
So destruction is by what? Fire or what?
That's up to the destruction agency, but most of the time they get buried somewhere safe. Say it that way. All right? Yeah.
Get your shovel out, Roger.
Breaking Bad.
But trust me, they do get, they won't be usable where they go, right? Even if you tried, it was not usable, right? So some of the challenges with making liquids and suspensions is, in today's 21st century, all natural, organic. You hear those commercials all the time. You see it in food. And so a lot of the liquid manufacturers are starting to want to market all natural drugs, okay? That makes it difficult. But something be all natural, you got to get it. That means you got to get it from a plant or from somewhere else, not a synthetic drug, a synthetic compound Makes it very difficult to get that in mass numbers. All right? Is agave syrup. You got to have an agave plant, okay, to get it in mass numbers. All right, that's an example. Material handling techniques. That's some challenges. How do you get the liquid from a drum, a 55-gallon drum, into a tank? It's got to be transferred. Old way was we get up on a lift and get up there and manhandle it and dump it over. We don't do that anymore. We do a drum transfer to get it up there. Vacuum transfer, a drum transfer, a pump transfer, some way to get it to those. Cleaning and validation verification, liquids have to be clean. Once you clean out a liquid, you finish making a batch, you have to clean the tank. How do you test for the residue from that product to make sure it's not going to the next product? We have to swab, we have to clean it, then we have to take swab tests and do analytical testing to determine what the lowest, how many times it takes to clean that tank to make sure there's no residue in it. Those are the things, challenges you have. Leachability. Transfer hoses, they'll leach. So some solvents come in contact with those transfer hoses and that plastic will leach right into that product. So you have to have predetermine what will not leach into this product. Okay? What is compatible with that solvent and what will not leach out. Okay? We have to do all that up front. Stability of the product, shelf life, that's always an issue on the shelf. How long will it stay? 24 months, 36 months. 36 months is usually the longest that a liquid will stay on the shelf, a suspension. Leaking bottles, the closures, the caps, how long will it stay? We do tests. We turn the bottle sideways, most all cases. Never is in the store. You never see it in the store that way. It's always this way in the store, upright. But the test from the USP is a sideways test because they want to know if it leaks out after a certain period of time. And sometimes the inner liner will wear, corrode, and start leaking. So that's how the test is performed, this way. All right? And control heating and cooling of tanks. That's another issue. How do you heat and cool a 4,000 liter tank? They're jacketed tanks. You run it, use a TCU or a heat exchanger to heat and cool. But old way you had steam, and steam, does anybody know how steam works? It's just like a kettle. It runs through there and get hot, real hot, and then you have to try to cool it down. And then didn't have a lot of control, but today's modern TCUs, what we call them, heat exchangers, they can control and regulate. So once it starts approaching, if you set a set point at 100 degrees F, once they get to 80 or 90, it starts slowing down the heating process and starts sending in cool liquid. They get it, inch it up to the 100 degrees and hold it there. All right? So that's what pharmaceutical engineers have to do and come up with ways to do that. Okay, all solid dose, and this is where I'm gonna spend the rest of the day talking about solid dose. So it's, as I stated earlier, direct blend. That means compounds that can go together, mix them up, and then put them into a tablet press and spit them out. Direct blend. Usually the particle sizes are similar. If not, they can get milled really easily and have the same size particles, and they go together really well. And you send them to compression, and usually don't have a lot of problems with it. Okay? But then you have those that will not do that, and you have to either wet or dry granulate. That means you wet them. You get them a wet mix, and usually sometimes you have to wet mill it, dry it, and then mill it again. All right? And we call that wet or either dry granulation to get the particles the same size so that tablet, that the compounds or the raw materials will go together and can be compressed into a tablet. So tablet compression is a challenge. If it starts with the formulation, if the formulation is not right, the tablet press is going to have a hard time compressing it. Because it's just like taking a box of flour and trying to compress it. Well, it's not going to compress too well because there's nothing to bind. It's just like baking a cake. You put an egg in there so it'll stick together. So it's the same concept with a wet granulation. You put moisture in it to get it to stick together, then you dry it, and then you go to compression. Mill it or granulate it or sieve it, and then go to compression. So the formula for a typical formula for all solid dose, you got API, active pharmaceutical ingredient. You got a filler, which is lactose, colorant. Some examples, FD&C Blue Lake. It can be yellow, blue, green. It's got different things, but they all registered with the FDA, and that's what you have to use. You can't just come up with a dye and put in there. They usually, they all are USP formulated chemicals or entities that is used in drug making. Everything is registered and has a number. It has a binder, which is something like a propylene glycol. It usually has a binder in that. It has a disintegrant. Cross-comallose is a compound that's used in most oral solid doses. You have a lubricant, stearic acid or magnesium stearate. The lubricant is in there to help it go through the tablet press. It really just holds it together to make it come out the press, not stick to the punches and dyes. And I'll show you here a little later what I'm talking about. And then you have a granulating agent. It's a water solvent. So if we're doing a wet granulation, it's going to either be a water or a solvent. Use alcohol as a solvent. In most cases, it's alcohol. Okay. This is a typical OSD formulation. Now, different from the one I showed you before. And though it's a little difficult to see, but you can see those little diagrams. Those are all different pieces of equipment. I took the name away from this compound, but as you can see, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pieces of equipment that it has to go through to get to the end. It's a mill, it's a sieve, it's a V blender, it's a granulator. So it gets, this product in particular get granulated, it's milled, blended again, milled, and then final blended again. All right, so it goes through a lot of steps. It's not just throwing it in the mix and then it coming out okay. It takes a lot of steps to get through to the end to get a tablet and get all those particles to come together. All right? And the way we do it, blending. So blenders, it doesn't matter the type of blender, but they're all used to ensure homogeneity of the blend. So that device, equipment on the other side is what we call a V blender. Just like it looks, it's a V blender. The one over here, we call a bend blender. The difference is the V blender, it tumbles just like that one tumbles. But the difference is this one has 8 sides. It's octagonal. So octagonal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those 8 sides mean something. That's how many times that product needs to hit and tumble in order to get blended. That V blender doesn't hit it as many times. It goes to the V shape, flips over, and it gets tumbled like that. But whatever compound we decide that goes in here needs that type of tumbling, octagonal. So it gets hit 8 times when it's tumbling. It needs that much turbulence to get it to go together. All right? But you got different type of blenders. You got V blenders, you got conical blenders, you got bends and octagonals, which is this one. Then you got what they call a ribbon blender. Those are products that's hard to go together. It's the same concept, same process, but just some compounds takes a different type of blending process. A ribbon blender uses chops and turns at the same time. Okay. Blending. This is some of the things that pharmaceutical engineers are asked to do. So, the one on the right, you can see that's a live room picture of a blending, manufacturing room. I don't know if you can see that or not. You can see all the dust and in that room all over the place. Now, what happens if that guy's suit is breached? Get a hole in the helmet, get a hole in the suit, or they bend up under something and it comes up, and you're not protected. That's what we call a purified air respirator that he has on with the thing. So it's supplying the air, the clean air to him. If that suit get breached, all that powder in the room, imagine that's fentanyl, and you're in the room with that. You think he's gonna come out? No, we will no way. And we can't run in unless we got on a suit. And that happened to me personally, making a product with another company. And I was actually making that first batch of, it's a drug called Opana, very strong narcotic. We made 2 forms of it, immediate release and extended release. FDA actually is so strong, the FDA came to us and asked us to stop making it. So we took it off the market.
extended release version of it, but we still made the immediate release, and I made the first batch. And somewhere along the line, I had my suit on, and I knew what I was doing, and I had to, somewhere along the line, my suit got breached, and I got a good dose of it, and somewhere in that process. That's the first time I've had, my blood pressure went up. They actually thought I was having a heart attack. Went to the hospital, I was out for 2 weeks, but I made it through, fortunately. And I was careful. Didn't immediately affect me at the time. I was in the room and working at it, but I just kept, my blood pressure kept going up and up and up and up. Couldn't get it down. So I got a powder dose of that. Now a tablet is controlled. You got it into a dosage form. But when you get in the full powder dose like that, that is a high level of concentration. And so that personally happened to me in 2014 time frame. But this is what they're asking us to do. So now we're going to closed systems. We got PLCs on the side to operate the thing. We got closed systems. So from the blender goes directly to a drum with connections, and there's not dust in the air. Okay. Same thing with a blender here. That's a blender. That's a blender. Same concept. We got lifts that we put it on. You can put a drum in there, invert it, connect, goes through the blender. You load all your drums in the blender, closed connection. Then when you get through blending, you come out closed connection. That's what we do now. The less you can have dust and particles in the room, the better you are.
Are they not able to adjust up the pressure so that
30. So that was the third quarter.
So much pressure.
So you can add to that if you can do the math. Then you suck away what they're doing as they're trying to transfer. In the U.S. That's just the U.S. Unless it's closed loop like this. So if you're doing an open transfer, couple examples, it will pull the ingredients out. No weights down. So I just picked the weights off the site. Critical. All those 4,000 something, they open to the public. 100.00 grams, Century, you got to weigh 100.00 grams. Not 100. Back in the old days, you did not see a 43. Only the company sold ingredient is that way. Now, as soon as they leave the company, it is on the way. 55.29. So if you don't want to be seen, don't have any deficiencies, because it is going to be on the way up. Okay. Immediately. And so this is just some examples, and you can see some of these examples is on equipment. Just for example, equipment environment, we do all that work up front. So when we do what we call a feasibility batch or development batch, we do all that test at that time. Humidity, temperature. We know how much exposure they can get. We know we determine the handling technique to be used. We determine what PAPR we wear. They cut that out, so you have to get the freedom of information, get to see the whole we use and how to. You'll see the company's name contained, a closed or open type system. You can go to that website. That's the link. During the development, pull up any company. Right? You can pull up that's when we measure. Pull up Pfizer. We know what level we. They had a 483. It is those in the numbers system. Are, and we keep them under those levels. Those suits are down to. They're provide a lot of protection. Always been there. If a company gets a warning letter, they're in really trouble. Just depends on which one you buy. But those PAPRs provide a lot of protection for employees. No exposure. If in Lincoln, Nebraska, as I go, it's our job to keep them safe. They have a consent decree. Okay, plant 10 minutes. I'm trying to figure out. Right. When I was there, run through pretty quickly then to get out from under that consent decree. This is milling. Milling is the next step. So you blend and then you mill. Different types of mills. They all do the same. Used for particle size reduction. So don't matter what mill you use. There's all different types. Impact, shear. Yeah. But multi-mill fluid, energy, and they got through it. Doesn't matter. It just took that much effort to get used past it. I mean, that's not secret. It was particle size. It's so public information that they got at the time. And compounds can go together. And to get through it, they had to get a lot of help to get through it. The next step, that's an example of a milling operation. I won't go through it for the sake of time, but you can see how the room was before. We follow the rules and do everything possible. That's what a pharmaceutical engineer does. How do we keep this contained once you get to that position? Okay. Next step is granulating. You heard me talk about wet granulation. These are type of granulation. That's a fluid bed granulator, and that's a mixing type granulator. Difference is this one you put it in the vessel with Mikart and mix it just like a mixer you have baking a cake at home. 200 employees. This one here, you send an air under it. You put the product in the bowl down here. Put air up on it, lift it up in the air, and dry it. So I can do it in a lot of different ways. Electrical, mechanical, that's how you dry it. Chemical comes out. Once it's dried, then we take it out and then you go to the next step. That's the difference between the two. But That
all
is
disciplines
granulation
of
process.
engineers work in the pharmaceutical industry. Drying, environmental,
different ways to dry
industrial
product.
hygienists.
Doesn't matter how
All
they
of
do
those
it,
work
but
in the
it's used
pharmaceutical
to
industry.
remove moisture.
And one thing about the
or
pharmaceutical
solvent from the
industry,
bulk
it's
solid. So
almost
from the powder,
recession-proof.
you got to get the moisture out, or you got to get the solvent
That's
out.
one of the things
You
that
use
did
the
not
solvent
go
in the
away
water to make the particles
when
go
COVID
together.
hit.
Then you got to remove
Everything
it
else
after they're
hit.
together.
We
All
did slow
So
down because we
different
couldn't get
process,
raw
air
materials.
drying,
Things got
vacuum
stuck on
drying,
barges and ships,
freeze
and we
drying,
couldn't get raw materials to
lyophilization.
make
People
product.
hear a lot of
But
that now and lately.
when you talk
and then
about
spray drying, so this is an
career
example of a
opportunity
spray drying
that is
process
almost
at the
recession-proof.
bottom. So again,
know this is
liquid
live,
comes
but
in,
the pharmaceutical
sprayed
industry,
into
drugs
that
are-
chamber
people are
that I
always
showed you
gonna
on the
need
last
medicines.
picture. It's atomized, right? We blow air in there to make it spray.
Okay.
It's heat. Get the particles
leave
up.
this
it's
last
dried,
word
and
of
then comes
mine
out
with you.
on the other side, and then we'll do some milling and some other things on the other end. But those are different
If
techniques.
you remember nothing else,
Lyophilization
you
is
can remember
low.
this.
It's a freeze drying process.
This is a
We
quote
heard
I
a
came
lot
up
about
with. I
that
was
during
sitting around
COVID
thinking about
when
it
they was
when
making those
Roger asked me to
vaccines.
think about it, and I
minus
said,
40 degrees.
In the world of
And
pharmaceutical
that's where it has to
engineering,
stay.
precision is not just
That's
a
how you make
goal.
it at that lower
It's a
temperature because
requirement.
it's sensitive
tablet
to heat,
crafted, a ball of
sensitive to a
field.
lot of things.
It's a
And
promise
in
of health.
order to
and
make it, it has to
well-being,
stay at
demanding
that
the
cold.
utmost attention to
All right,
quality.
so
and
we have
detail
those
by
cold
its
rooms
maker.
that we work in.
So when
One
my
how they
daddy
work in those
died,
cold rooms, he was taking 4
It's
drugs
pretty chilly.
that I personally
Right,
made,
but
it's minus 40. Yep. That didn't kill him, but I'm just saying it. Okay. Then we go to compression. So how do you get your pills in your bottle? But that's how
This is how
personally
we do
your
it.
family members
So
take these
tableting,
drugs. Okay.
We make
All right.
tablets and capsules.
As again, I talked about earlier, multi-layer tablets, mini tabs. That's usually an all solid dose route.
Okay, thank you. I hope it's-
And that's a
all right,
tablet
thank you.
press. It takes the powder coming through a hopper.
I appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
you got these upper and lower rollers, they're the main rollers, and then you got the pre-rollers. So bottom line, a tablet goes into a die or into a hole. It's got an upper punch and a lower punch, and it's pressed in between and then kicked out. All right? And it happens in milliseconds. We can make 100,000 tablets, 300,000 tablets an hour. Real easy.
City water and then
Filtration.
And that's what it does. And it's showing you the process. It fills that die up, punches it in, and comes out. So pre-compression
Carbon
starts
base,
forming the tablet. You put a little
DI
pressure on it to start forming it. Then the main compression finishes off and kicks it out. All right? You can get up to 10 kilonewtons. Most of them around 7 or 8, 5 or 6 kilonewtons. Then you have some soft tablet, depending on how soft the tablet needs to be. If you want it to dissolve quicker, it's a softer tablet. You want it to dissolve faster, longer, stay in the gut longer, it's a harder tablet. So we control how fast it releases in your gut by the hardness in a lot of cases. And then if not, we'll coat the tablet, and then that'll control how long. Extended release, it'll let it go. We know how the layers peel back. 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. That's how you get extended release. So from the hardness and from the coating, we can do it. And some tablets have a coating that is therapeutic. So it has a drug dose in the coating. All right?
Our next meeting
We throw it
will be
away.
the second Monday of January.
We don't scrap much. We try to stay under 3% in most cases. That's from starting up the process, stop when you go on breaks, you go to lunch, you go home at night, you have to start up and reinitialize the tablet press, and there's some waste at the beginning and when you start up. But we try to stay under 3%. That's typical for most operations, which is pretty good. Okay?
How many kilonewtons did you say?
Most about 5 to 6 kilonewtons. Maximum on a tablet press is about 10. And that's a big tablet. You got a 1,000 milligram or 1,200 milligram tablet. It takes a lot of force to make that big peel. Okay? This is some other examples of tablet compression. You can see on the side how it used to be. That was back in the day. Again, all the dust. Now you can see how they do a tablet press closed systems. You got a lift, you got an inverter, goes down overhead feeding to the tablet press and then out. That's the clean way you want to do it. Okay? That's what they asked the pharmaceutical engineers to come up with, ways like that. All right? That's another example of, that was a single-sided press. This is a double-sided press. I'm going to show you, let me see. Example, a little video. So we had a double issue and they asked us to solve, and I'm going to show you this little video. I actually designed that hopper.
that's on top of that press, because before was the old way with all the dust and thing. I designed that hopper to fit on top of that press. It's an older press. We designed the hopper with legs on it to sit on the press. It'll hold actually 2 of those 70 kg drums. We had a lift put in. You touch a button and program it. It goes over to where it needs to go and sits down on the step. Okay? Operator's out there. He over there doing something in the operator. You can see the operator doing something else on the other side. He can walk away, put it in, walk away, go do what he needs to do, and then come back and start running tablets. But before, it was just like I saw it on the other side where they had to manually dump it in. Don't do that anymore in the 21st century. This is the way it's either done this way, or if you can see that hole over the top of that blue drum, we got a second floor and let it gravity feed. So we'll feed out of a bin or a drum from the second floor and directly into the tablet press. We have devices called decelerators. I'm gonna back up one here. I didn't show it and point that out. This right here is called a decelerator. It's actually a tube, a plastic tube from a second floor. And you control it from the bottom floor, and you punch a button, and that tube is flat, and it'll open up slowly and let those particles come down. So you got big particles, little particles. If you let it drop out, the particles will separate. So you control it down and let all the product come down to the press at the same time. So that tube will let it come down to the tablet press and not separate, segregate. All right? Call those decelerators. All right? Almost to the end. And these are some of the challenges. The type of tooling you use. Products are corrosive. Products stick to the tooling. You have low moisture content. That'll give you a problem trying to press flour, you know. Tooling, upper and lower punch dies that break. And you have to have special tooling. You can look at some of this tooling. We call these, look at this tooling right here. The tips are different, right? It makes it different in how they compress. Some of it's coated tooling. It got a little thin coating on it so to keep it from sticking, keep it from rusting. We got multi-tips. I can make 5 different products with the same tooling. Just pull the end of it off and put another tip on it. That's the new way we do it in the 21st century. You don't have to buy all that different tooling. You just buy the tips. It pops right on and you make the next product. Okay. That's a packaging operation. So packaging operation, we do tablets, bottles, cups, sachets, stick packs, powder in a bottle, blisters. And that's an example of a modern day tablet packaging machine. You see a lot of things on the line. So it gets weighed, it gets the tablets get put in the bottle. They get a number, serialized number. They get a cap put on. They get cotton put in. All that's automated. You don't have a person standing on the line doing this anymore. It's all automated. It gets loaded in. It goes off to the end. Gets put in carton. Gets out of shipper. Gets serialized on the outer shipper. Goes on a pallet. Gets wrapped. Gets ready to go on the truck. Okay. All that's done on these type of machines. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit design. I'm just about to close. I have a couple of more slides and we talk about facility design. So when I talk about modern day design, and I'm going to lead you to the GAMP guides. All right. ISPE in that Society for Professional Engineers has GAMP guide, baseline guides for how to design a facility. And it talks about the airlocks, HVAC, material and personnel flow. So you don't want people and product coming through the same door. We have to build separate doors, so materials come in this way, people come in that way. They come in, they gown up, they come in, the material gets dropped in the airlock, that locks that door, you put it in, that locks that door. Those two doors won't open at the same time because you lose your air control then. It's negative to the room, so we have airlocks. So they lock off each other, okay, from both ends, okay? That's all a part of that facility design. But it's all those in the ISO standards, GAMP guides. ISP is a good resource for all that. They have facility design base guidelines. Some more references for you for HVAC system, very critical in the pharmaceutical industry. We have to have clean air. You cannot have dirty air. It's either HEPA filtered or it's one pass air. It goes in and goes out, never returns. Always clean air. All right. And that's a challenge for most people, especially when you're dealing with potent compounds, as I talked about with fentanyl and things like that. It has to go out and be purified. It can't come back that direction, in one directional air. Automation is another area. GAMP has a lot of things on automation. The FDA regulates that. You got to have traceability. You can't just log in. They got to know who logged in, when they logged in, if they made a change. It's all tracked. Every time I log in on the computer, it tells when I logged in and when I logged out. If I log into a PLC in the manufacturing area, they know who logged in. Several companies have gone to biometrics. When I worked for Fuji Medical, we had biometrics. We walk up there with your thumbprint. That's how you logged in the computer, and that's how you logged out. Next guy come behind you, he logged in with their thumbprint and logged out. You could not leave it open. You walked away from the PLC, you had to log out. The next guy could come in. If you want to work on it, you had to log in with their thumb. That's how we traced everybody. So everybody had fingerprints. That's one way to do it. Now they're doing eye prints. You can log in with your eyes, just like you see on the TV with, I don't know, what's that thing, with Tom Cruise in it. That's how we do it. That's really how it's done these days. You log in with biometrics, okay? This is what we, in the drug industry, Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, Parts 210 to 11, regulates the drug section. Medical device has sections. Everybody has a section. But for its pharmaceutical manufacturing, 210 to 11 is where we deal in, and that's where most of our guidance documents come from, okay? And at the very end, some examples. This is how many inspections they formed up in the FDA as of 9/30/2023. This is how many write-ups they've done. 4,428 write-ups. Is that right? 4,481 write-ups. 483s of their inspections as of 9/30. So that was the third quarter. So you can add to that. If you can do the math, you can see how many inspections they're doing in the U.S. That's just the U.S. Some examples, a couple examples here, and I tried to write them down, so I just picked a few off the site. It's all those 4,000 something, they open to the public. This is 21st century information you can have. Back in the old days, you did not see a 483. Only the company saw it in the FDA. Now, as soon as they leave a company, it is on the web. So if you don't want to be seen, don't have any deficiencies, because it is going to be on the web, okay? Immediately. And so this is just some examples, and you can see some of these examples is on equipment. Just for example, equipment environmental control. It's equipment for adequate control over air pressure, microorganisms, dust, humidity, temperature is not provided when appropriate for manufacture, processing, packaging, or holding of a drug product. Specifically, then they get specific. They cut that out, so you'd have to get the freedom of information to get to see the whole thing, but you'll see the company's name. You'll know who they are. You can go to that website, that's the link, and you can pull up any company. You can pull up J&J, you can pull up Pfizer. If they had a 483, it is in the system, and you can read it, what they were cited for. All right, warning letters, always been there. If a company gets a warning letter, they're in really trouble. And if they get a consent decree, they're shut down. I worked at Novartis up in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was up there for a year. They had a consent decree. That plant, I'm trying to figure out, when I was there, to get out from under that consent decree, it was 238 consultants there at one time. And that's a fact.
Does a lot for your stock prices.
Yeah, but they worked through it, and they got through it. It just took that much effort to get past it. I mean, that's not secret. It was the warning letter. It's public information that they got at the time, and to get through it, they had to get a lot of help to get through it. Okay, that's how significant it gets when you get to a warning letter consent decree. You don't want to get in that position, and this is why we follow the rules and do everything possible to not to get in that predicament, because it's very costly once you get to that position. Okay.
I got two quick questions for you. Again, thanks for a great presentation. I learned a lot, so you knocked it out of the park for that. How long have you been with the company, and how many employees have y'all got here in Georgia?
I've been with Mikart for 4.5 years. We have about 200 employees.
What disciplines of engineering would work in the pharmaceutical industry?
All of them. Electrical, mechanical, chemical. Then we got people that we call pharmaceutical engineers. We have all disciplines of engineers working in the pharmaceutical industry. Yep, environmental, industrial hygienists, all of those work in the pharmaceutical industry. And one thing about the pharmaceutical industry, it's almost recession-proof. Okay, that's one of the things that did not go away when COVID hit. When everything else hit, we did slow down because we couldn't get raw materials. Things got stuck on barges and ships, and we couldn't get raw materials to make product. But when you talk about a career opportunity that is almost recession-proof, and I know this is live, but the pharmaceutical industry, drugs are, people are always going to need medicines. Okay? And I'm going to leave this last word of mine with you. If you remember nothing else, you can remember this. Okay? And this is a quote I came up with. I was sitting around thinking about it when Roger asked me to think about it, and I said this: in the world of pharmaceutical engineering, precision is not just a goal, it's a requirement. Each tablet crafted or bottle filled is a promise of health and well-being, demanding the utmost attention to quality and details by its maker. So when my daddy died, he was taking 4 drugs that I personally made. Wow. Yep. That didn't kill him, but I'm just saying it. Okay? But
Thank you for clarifying.
yes. But that's how personal it is. Your family members take these drugs. Okay?
Good job, Michael.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I hope it's all right. Thank you. Yep.
Here's
All
a
right.
token of appreciation.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Really appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right.
We hope you enjoyed this recorded presentation given at one of the Atlanta Metro Chapter meetings of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, an affiliate of the National Society of Professional Engineers. To find out more about us or to join us, check us out at gspe.org.